Moshe Rabbeinu praying to God, asking that a new leader choose into the land of Israel. Something very interesting about the word Moshe, it could be read in many ways. And if you take the shin and you put the dot from the right side and you put it to the left side, you have the word mi, supposed to be read miseh. What does miseh mean? Seh is a sheep. From the story of the sheep. What's the story of the sheep? When Moshe Rabbeinu began his reign of leadership, a shepherd, the Torah says he was taking care of the flock of Yisro, and God saw the way one little sheep ran off. It was thirsty, it needed some water, so it ran off to get water. And Moshe Rabbeinu went back and he picked up the little sheep and carried it, gave it some water and carried it back. And when God saw the way he cared about each individual sheep, even the weak one that needed extra water and it was a little slower, and he lifted it up with love, God says, you're the one who's going to be the leader, because that's the quality of a leader, to care about each individual member of the flock, not just the flock on a whole. So the word Moshe could be miseh, from the story of the sheep. And it's beautiful to see that when Moshe Rabbeinu ends his career as the leader of the Jewish people 40 years after he started, he finishes where he started off. Because when he prays to God for a new leader, he says, Yifkod Hashem Elokei Haruchot L'chol Basar. May God, who is the God, the Lord of the Spirit of all men, appoint a leader over the congregation. And Rashi says, why this introduction? The God who is the Lord of the Spirit of every flesh, may he appoint a new leader. Why this introduction? And Rashi says something so beautiful. Rashi says, God, you know you didn't create any two people the same. Everyone's unique. Everyone's one of a kind. Everyone's custom made. As they say, be yourself because everyone else is taken already, right? You're the only one like yourself. And therefore you know that every person is special and unique in their own way. And you can't just have a leader who is a mass leader for the masses. He has to understand the nature of each individual. Just like a good teacher or a good parent understands each child specifically, uniquely. Each student is an individual. Doesn't just look at the classroom as all the same. To understand each person's unique character and treat each person with that care and love as an individual, and appoint a leader like Joshua who's capable of doing that. And here you see the two bookends of Moshe Rabbeinu's leadership. Miseh, when he cared about each individual sheep, and at the same time when he finishes, he says, find a leader who can relate to each person as an individual. Sometimes we think, I once heard something beautiful. The word Sodom, the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, if you rearrange the letter, it could spell the word Mossad. Mossad is an institution. What's the connection between Sodom and Gomorrah and an institution, a Mossad? And the answer is, there was something called a Sodom bed. What was a Sodom bed? One of the cruelest beds. Everyone had to fit into that bed. If you were too short, they stretched you. If you were too long, they cut you a little shorter. And the idea is institutions sometimes say everyone has to be the same. Every student, every person has to be the same, and they have to fit in the box. Not everyone was created equal. Everyone's different. And a leader has to relate to each person uniquely. I read a story once, that in Johns Hopkins University, professor of sociology or something, gave his students an assignment. He sent his class to the poorest, slummest neighborhood, a crime-infested, ridden neighborhood, a place which was a breeding ground for crime. And he said, I want you to find each one of you 10 students and interview them and write us a report what you predict their life is going to turn out to be. And they had to find kids, teenagers between the ages of 12 and 16. So they went on their assignment and they interviewed 200 kids collectively. And basically after talking to their kids and the homes they came from and the environment they were growing up in, they predicted that 90% of them would all end up in prison at one point or another. 25 years later, the professor sent his class then to go back and track down these 200 kids and see what happened to them. And they were shocked. They were able to find 180 of the 200 kids, and it turns out that only 4 of them ended up in prison out of 180. And so they interviewed all the kids. They said, what happened? How did you defy the odds? How did you turn out to be successful? And they all attributed to one particular teacher, a certain woman in their school who was a wonderful teacher, who cared about them. So they went to interview this teacher. She was already retired. They said, what was the secret? How did you influence all these kids? What was your secret to being a good teacher? And she said, I really don't know. I didn't do anything special. Didn't do anything unique. They kept on asking her, was it this? Was it that? No, I was just a regular teacher. And then as she was reminiscing about her students, she just said, I love those boys so much. And she just commented it, and they said, that's the secret. That was the care. And therefore the key to being, someone once pointed out to me, you could be a professional doctor, professional lawyer, professional accountant. There's no such thing as a professional parent. Why? Because it's not a profession. It has to come from the heart. When you love your students, when you love your children, when you love your congregation, when you love people, then you have the strongest and the most everlasting, powerful, positive impact on them. And that was the secret to Moshe Rabbeinu's leadership and why his influence and his love is felt till this very day.